Okay, let's see. I've printed off your questions so that I don't forget to answer any of them. And thank you again for thinking of me for this little project. So my name is Justine Vandergrift. I grew up half of my life in Vernon, BC, and then my family moved to Lacombe, Alberta. Interestingly, we wanted to move to Alberta because we have lots of family here, including some relatives in Millet, Alberta. So there's a farm there that I spent a lot of time at when I was a little girl. So I have very fond memories of Millet. So where do I work and what is my job? So as a singer-songwriter, I end up working in many, many different capacities. As a singer-songwriter, musician, we tend to wear a lot of hats, literally. But I work the most on the road, typically, except for 2020. The job involves playing shows. In the last few years, I've played a lot of shows around Calgary, which is where I live now. And prior to that, I taught guitar lessons. I've taught lots of lessons as well. And I record music that people use for different projects. And I've written some songs that people have specifically asked me to write. It's a very diverse kind of job. So I work essentially from wherever I am, and I chose this job. The next question is, why did you choose this job, and do you enjoy it? And how did I get this job? So I chose the job because I have always loved writing songs. I started when I was very little. I wrote some really hilarious songs that maybe one day the world will hear, but I tend to write songs about my experiences and hardships or ideas or whatever it might be. I just always felt this pull to write music. So I wrote the songs and found that there was, back in the day, ways to make a living playing music and touring and performing, whether it be festivals or halls or pubs or house concerts. I just chose to give it a shot. Back in 2011 is when I started. And I had done other jobs as well, worked in offices, and as I'll get to later on, I have a degree from the King's University in social science. So I had a bunch of different jobs working with people with disabilities, which I also used music with. All of it was great, but I realized that ultimately I wanted to play music for a living. So that's how I got the job. I essentially kind of chose to do it. I do have some musical training. What kind of education did you need to get this job? I got guitar lessons when I was younger, but then I mostly taught myself. When I was in university, I took a couple music courses. So I can read music, but I don't really read music very much, believe it or not. I play by ear. So is my job hard? That's a good question. It can be hard, depending on the economy and the time of year. For me, in the summertime, there's lots of gigs and festivals, and so I get to keep quite busy and earn my income that way. But there's times where there's less work for musicians, there's less places to perform, and then that gets to be a little bit hard. It's also hard as a musician because you have to do a lot of different tasks. You need to be able to promote your gigs, you need to be using social media, you need to be rehearsing, you need to be leading a band, you need to be learning how to work your equipment, you need to plan your tours, you need to get from one gig to the next. You need to be able to drive, obviously. So there's a lot of dimensions to the work I do. I like it because I like to keep busy and I like a challenge. So how much time does your job require? Work hours, practice, skill, development. It takes as much time as the gig requires. So sometimes people hire me to play for a wedding, and so I have to work for hours and hours to learn the songs before the wedding and make sure we have a sound system and travel. So it's hard to say exactly how many work hours it is for me, but there is a lot of practice involved and a lot of skill development involved. So I already answered what kind of education I got. I don't think that singer-songwriters need to necessarily have formal education, but they need to work really hard at learning the craft of songwriting and work really hard to understand the music industry. So some people do go to school for that, and if you're going to be playing in a band, there's really good schooling that you can take. In Edmonton at Grant MacEwan, a lot of musicians go there and they become excellent touring band members, and they play music all over the world. What did you learn in school that has helped you in life or in your job? That's a good question. You know, I miss being in school with peers because you learn so much from your friends. And school is a lot about the books and a lot about the skills that you get to learn in class, but also you learn so much more than you even realize when you're interacting with other people and when you're asking questions and trying to discover who you are. So in school, I think I learned all throughout grade school and in university. I learned a lot about who I am. I learned that I'm a writer. I learned that I really like to write poetry, which contributes to writing songs. I learned that I love music more than anything. I learned that I'm a very active person with a lot of ideas. So I like to be busy and very creative. And I learned a lot of skills. Obviously, learning how to work a computer and make a spreadsheet and talk to other people have all been really beneficial skills in my life. When I was a kid, what did you want to do as a kid for a job? I think I always wanted to play music. For a little while, I wanted to play basketball and then volleyball. I really liked playing sports as a kid, but I also knew that ultimately I was going to somehow do something with music. So, and what would you want to be if you could have any other job? That's a really good question because I've learned during the pandemic that I wanted to go back to school. And so I'm actually currently taking some courses so that I can become a psychologist, a therapist for people, because when I'm older, I don't want to be touring and traveling as much. So I would rather help people who need help with their mental health and who are struggling that way. So I would love to be a therapist, and I'm working on becoming a therapist right now. The next question. How do you know Mr. Whitten? Well, as I said, I went to the King's University College. Oh, now it's just called the King's University, sorry. And we were there, I think, maybe a few of the same, 2 or 3 of the same years. And we had a mutual friend named Gabe DeGroot, and Mr. Whitten played volleyball at the time. So I watched him play volleyball, and then we met up after university as well and touched base that way. And I think he was going to school at that time to become the teacher that he is right now. And I have not dedicated a song to him yet. Maybe one day. I know that wasn't one of the questions, but what's the most exciting moment in my life so far? Now that's a hard question to answer. I've traveled quite a lot, but maybe for me it was playing on the main stage of the Edmonton Folk Festival. That was a really special moment for me because when I was young, when I was probably in grade 7, my dream was to one day play on the main stage of the Edmonton Folk Music Festival. And I never really thought I would until I was there. So that was a really very exciting moment. And do I have any hobbies? Yeah, besides music, I have actually quite a few hobbies. I love to cook. I love yoga. I love making crafts. I actually make a lot of macrame plant hangers, and I like plants a lot as well. So I do a lot of work with plants, and I'm always kind of making things. So I guess I have a lot of hobbies, and I will probably have more as I get older. Now I want to hear all about you guys. Maybe you could send me a video in response to this one. Feel free. I would love that. Now the second last question is, what is my Tim Hortons order? I always love a honey cruller. That's definitely the best thing for me at Tim Hortons. And if I'm on the road and desperate, I will get a BLT sandwich. And what dreams or goals are you working towards? I guess I already answered that a little bit. I am going back to school to get my master's so that I can be a therapist. However, to me, I don't think that people only have to have one career. I think that in your lifetime you can learn a lot and experience a lot. And especially as a musician, I think I'll always write songs and I'll always play music. And I also want to find a more stable job that doesn't mean I have to travel so hard or so much and work so hard at promoting my music. I'd rather do something that can help people. So that's why I've decided that I'm going to become a psychologist. But I also look forward to touring in Europe again. I toured in Europe last year, so as soon as it's safe to do so, I want to tour in Europe again. I want to tour in Montana. Next summer, I have festivals in Montana. And those are some of the goals that I'm working towards. And yeah, I guess that's about it. And this is already getting to be a pretty long video. So thank you all so much for having me share a little bit with you. And if you have any more questions, feel free to pass them on to Mr. Whitten for me. And I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season.